Okay, recording is started. Today our speaker will be Gwendolyn. She is a doctoral candidate from English department. She also teaches classes, and today she will present some of her works related with AI. And she always been with us in the past, hear from peers as well. It's really good to hear her perspective and how she her journey with AI with her classroom as well. Gwendolyn, feel free to start your presentation.
Thank you so much, Armando. I'm always thankful for this community that is thinking through this interesting time that we're living through. We're really on the cusp of a lot of things, so it's great to have this community that we can interact with and think through these things. So what I'm sharing with you today, whoops, hold on, I just hit a button and my screen went away. Okay, 1 second. Okay, there you all went away. Now you're back. Hold on. As we all fight with technology, seems like the requisite fighting with technology to get started. So, what I want to share with you today, which may be a little bit unconventional, I'm going to share my screen real quick. Let's see, there we go. And if y'all could just give me a thumbs up that you can see everything. Okay, perfect. So, let me have slideshow. Okay, so what I'm showing you today is the result of a project that I did with Mary Landry, or excuse me, Mary Perkins. She's married now, it's Mary Landry, and she is in our department as well. And what we did, I'm going to share a link with you so that well, I'll share it with you afterwards when we get finished because that'll maybe mess up my screen. But what we did is we went through the Creative Commons certification program. And Creative Commons is something that we are all peripherally work with because we are all content creators, academic content creators in some form or fashion, and you usually have to think through those questions. So she and I went through a 10-week course where you get certified, and part of what you do at the end of that is you have to create a project that broaches some type of question that is emerging or some type of question that is lingering in that space. And she and I have both worked in the past on creating some content through the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board that broaches generative AI. So obviously, when we chose our project, we were interested in these types of questions. Now, Mary is a specialist in accessibility studies. That's what her research work is on. I am more in rhetoric. We're both in rhetoric, but she focuses on accessibility issues, and I focus on legibility practices, and I also play around with the generative AI. Now, so what I'm going to do, it's a little bit unconventional, is I'm going to just run through our presentation of what we would love to present this workshop. We think we have some good information, but I want to present my part of it just in this short 15 minutes to hopefully generate some questions that you might not have thought about these things together that I think has some real merit to them. So when we put this together, we were thinking about these two overriding questions within the space of Creative Commons. And so what we saw is we wanted to explore how copyright can impose limitations on what the accessibility community calls disabled body minds, whereas the spirit of adaptability that is just built into Creative Commons is making it more of an open door. Generative AI can actually close it off in ways that we do not anticipate. So we saw this kind of as a tensorial juncture of two questions that we really need to think about, like which body and which creator. So, in what we would do, this would probably be either a 30-minute or an hour-long workshop, but just to hit the highlights so that you can start thinking about these things. And if you're interested, hit me up. We can maybe play around with bringing this to your department or what have you. But you would need to know the Creative Commons fundamentals. You would need to know the importance of Creative Commons in education, and then those critical questions of which body, which creator, and then we have several calls to actions for that. So we had the objectives we wanted to do is have you analyze these types of intriguing questions that maybe make you think outside norms that you would normally be looking at. Because as we all know, most of us are engaged with what the Auburn, if y'all have taken that Auburn course, they basically put you in three categories. Are you someone who has red lighted generative AI, meaning you want to mitigate its use in your curriculum? Have you yellow lighted it? You have like cautious optimism and you support it, but cautiously? Or are you one of those, you're a green light? You just want to elevate it, you know it's there, you embrace it, you want to use it. So we are falling in the more we feel like all three of these, red light, yellow light, and green light, still need to think about these questions. And these were not questions that we normally thought of. So we thought it was a great way to introduce a workshop to just kind of work through our own questions we had with it. So we would ask in this workshop you to analyze the basics, identify critical intersections, evaluate the potential of open licensing, and then develop strategies that go with that. And then we would obviously, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go over a copyright overview right now, but we all know it as it has a very interesting history. But these are the things we all know about. We know that there's four elements: the attribution by, the share alike, non-commercial, no derivatives, and then there's 6 different licenses. And we all have to choose those licenses. But within these, in making these choices, what we did not realize is that accessibility doesn't always get built into that. So which bodies can access this? CC is supposed to open things up, but in many ways it can close things in, especially for disabled bodies. And it can also, when you are creating generatively with AI, I mean, how do you align copyright with that, with something that you created in concert with something? So this would be the part that Mary talks about accessibility and Creative Commons, and I'm not going to get into that, that's her expertise, and I would like to give her the option to present that if so. But I get into artificial intelligence, which creator, and here's what I think is happening here. It challenges traditional notions of authorship and attribution. Like if we go through the history of it and we go through all of the categorizations, generative AI is blurring the lines for that. And these are things that we have to, if we haven't grappled with this is another area that we need to grapple with. So when you say which creator, there's a co-creation going on. And especially if we allow our students to do it or we do it in our own research, then we need to be thinking about these things. So then questions arise on licensing under those normative license categories. And then there's a tension between democratizing content creation and protecting human creativity. Because as I've presented before, using Ethan Mollick's book, you have to, the way he reconciles it is just it's okay to use these generative mechanisms to get farther faster because they're there and they're being used. But you have to constantly acknowledge your presence as the human in there. And so I start off with, my take, I guess you can really see, is I'm more of the green light. I would like to just elevate its use and make sure that we are maintaining our human perspective through all of this. But it brings in not just technical aspects, it brings in philosophical considerations regarding creativity, authorship, and content in there. So what we would do is, if we had the workshop, is we would actually do some hypothetical scenarios. So I just have one here to briefly highlight it. So you've got, per se, a biology professor who creates a research paper on climate change's effects on coral reefs using the following process. The literature review was generated by AI. And if you think about it, this practice is even condoned to a certain extent by Texas A&M, who has given us the professional version of Perplexity. And if you've used Perplexity, you know it is an amazing way to quickly gather sources. Now, of course, you still have to do your due diligence and in essence, do the whole, going through our amazing library. But I was amazed at what that professional Perplexity. In fact, it let me find this little known text that I had just been overlooking using the database mechanisms through the library. I just ran it through Perplexity and I found several things that I don't think I would have found. So we cannot deny the use of it. So then you go through all of the parts of the paper and you say, Dr. Smith wants to publish this paper under Creative Commons license. But the things that you would need to consider is how would you approach this type of license and attribution for this work? Who or what should be recognized as the creators? And I have found, I'll talk a little bit, I'll just run through this quickly. For example, the Society for Vascular Surgery, I was kind of doing like just a quick internet dig of like, how do they, what are some disclosure statements? And I'll put it in the chat here in a moment when I stop sharing, but they have actually a disclosure that has to be put on all of the work. And it says, statement, during the preparation of this work, the authors used name the tool in order to name the reason. After using this tool, the authors reviewed and edited the content as needed and take full responsibility for the content of the publication. So more and more fields are acknowledging that the content is being created with this, and that is a form of acknowledgement that you would. I don't know that we have anything standardized in our English department, or I would love to know if you have something standardized in your departments. But then we would just take the people through, a workshop where we could pose these different questions and think them through the intersection of which body and which creator. And then the key takeaways from it would be AI's dual impact on accessibility, challenges with AI generated accessibility, questions for that CC framework, because this is not written down anywhere, folks. I mean, this is stuff we have to come up on our own. There's not a framework in place. We're making this up as we go. So the Creative Commons has a long history, but they don't have a history of dealing with this. So these are things that we are creating on the fly. And I don't know that I've ever seen anyone addressing these questions. My ignorance doesn't mean it's not being done, but I've not come across it. And so we realize there's a need for a nuanced approach and definitely call to actions. Now, within the call to actions, we envisioned 3 different audiences. We would love to bring these questions to perhaps the university administration. Like, could they put this into anything that goes out to the general A&M body in some way? Maybe we need to go there with these types of questions. Or we could do different departments, and we could go like brown bag lunch, just to, hey, while you're eating your lunch, think about some of these things within your department. But then we also, as PhD candidates, and Mary's a student, we were like, no one ever taught us to think about this. And in fact, this is brand new, and you're learning so much as when you're a PhD student and a candidate, you're so busy writing, but you're confronted with all these things, and there's no mechanism for how to deal with it. So these were things that we thought we broached these topics. We created a workshop. We analyzed, broke it down into 2 types of questions, and then we could take it through several different audiences. And so obviously Mary's the expert on accessibility. That's her research realm. And I am more into the rhetoric and the legibility practices of how this generative AI becomes legible within your own writing practices. So with that being said, I'm going to stop share. And then I wanted to put in that statement from the Vascular Society, so that if you were interested in modeling something like that, I can show that to you, like what they did. That was just one of many. And with that, I think I'm at 15 minutes, so I'll stop there.